All right, I think that's the sound I hear when I know we are rolling. Sometimes Skype's a little bit to say we are live, but from all the looks of it, guys, we are live, and we are going to do another Showdown video talking about the late game Bulls taking on the Blazers. So I asked you if you wanted to make one of these videos. You said yes. You chose the late game. I'm going to be honest with you, Bellman. I think that was the right choice because you want to know why? For people whose early lineup tanks, it's easier to get some money into that late one when things aren't going swimmingly. And if things are going well and maybe you just want to double it up, it's another reason to play that late game.
Yeah, anytime you get like a game on its own is I think the best time to look at a showdown game, and that's what we have here. Like it's not completely on an island, but for the purposes of tonight, it's on its own island.
Exactly. So we're going to run through a couple of things I want to bring up before we kind of jump into this one. We're off to a really, really good start on the main slate video today as far as getting to 200 likes. 200 likes for 2,000 views. I don't care which one it is. I mean, I love both, obviously, but if we get to those numbers, we'll pop open members only for the public tomorrow. No charge for anybody. All you got to do is go to that other video and slide your finger over to the like button. If you want to like this one, hey, man, I won't argue on that at all either. Always appreciate it. This kind of helps spread us around YouTube. And after a rough 2020 with COVID, it's been a lot of fun to actually get more of the customer base back and stuff like that. So we have a lot of you guys to thank for that.
No doubt about it, man. I'm excited to be making more videos and hop onto this showdown with you.
Next thing up, I just wanted to throw this out there. I got a couple of phone calls out with a few other people already, but we are going to be switching show sponsors as far as who we bring up and who our number one advertiser is going to be. So if there's anybody out there that would be interested in talking about the details of what it would be for us to bring you up and benching you on all, if not at least most of our videos, reach out to me privately and we can discuss what we'd be looking for from a partner. Just hit me up if interested, and we'll talk in a direct message, phone call, Skype type of form.
Let's get it, man.
All right, guys. So, I don't know if you're going to agree with me. You usually don't. So I'm going to throw it out there, and then we can kind of move from there. If you're playing a cash game type of format on the Showdown tonight, it is really, really easy to play the top four players in this game. And in my mind, that's the guards. That's the backcourt. It's Dame, CJ, Levine, and Kobe White, because there's a variety of ways to pay down right here. We know if Rodney Hood plays tonight, that's an easy place to go. We got Valentine, we got Simons, we got guys like that. I would try to smash these four guys in here, and you could even move it around and go with like a McCollum if you want a little extra cap space, or even a Zach LaVine. So I would play the four studs and then choose two of the scrubs down below.
I get that, man. I mean, listen, it's hard to argue that they're the four best players in this game. Doesn't mean they're going to be like the four best players for DFS purposes in terms of salary, but it's hard to argue with that strategy. That's for damn sure.
Right. Like, I mean, Otto Porter and Kobe White are not significantly different as far as what their prices are. I feel much better with the floor of a Kobe White. Otto Porter probably owns the same upside. We broke down Kobe White for a while today on the members only video. He's not a big steals guy. So, I mean, he's very reliant on scoring and assists, which does limit your upside a little bit. His floor, to me, though, is just higher than Otto Porter's. He has the ball in his hand all the time. He's an excellent three-point shooter, and he can get rolling at any point. And as far as like the mid tier on this slate, though, like Nurkic is playing small minutes. Wendell Carter has been inconsistent at best. I love Enes Kanter, but I trust him about as much as I trust a wet fart. Robert Covington has not really hit his stride. And Thaddeus Young is a little bit pricey for what I want to pay with him right now. So I would want to roll stars and scrubs in an optimal cash game lineup. Now, if you want to get jiggy with it and you want to get a little weird in GPPs, hey, man, there are some places to get weird on this one.
Yeah, I think that mid tier you just talked about that you don't feel comfortable about is more than GBP viable because you just need them to play well tonight. Like it's not crazy to think that Wendell Carter Nurkic combo, each of them has really good games here. Not the likeliest outcome, but I think you got to think about, and we talk about this all the time, tell yourself a story in these showdown games. Now, to your point, though, I think that the top four players in this game are that much better than everyone else. That being said, I really wasn't excited about picking two of those value plays you mentioned.
Well, I think we have to wait to see what happens in this game. And that's why it's nice you mentioned the idea that this is an island game. So looking at it later at night, like if you tell me Rodney Hood is playing today and he's $1,000, like I could get more excited about that because when he plays, he's 6 to 12 points a night, more or less. He plays about 15 minutes. You just need him to be in there. I don't know if he's going to play tonight. He appears to be firmly questionable. I could easily be satisfied with playing Rodney Hood at $1,000 because I think he's good for about 8 points.
How much is Daniel Gafford?
Well, that was another one. So specifically, I wanted to show you kind of this idea. Like, let's say you go down to McCollum or even a Zach LaVine in the captain position, because then you got, well, not Porter, but McCollum, LaVine, Lillard's. Now I got 2,500. And like, let's say you went with, like, Hood would then give you the ability to play like a Daniel Gafford. Otherwise, you got Garrett Temple. You got Denzel Valentine right here. You got your boy, Fettuccine Alfredo. Or no, this is Anthony Simons. I was thinking of somebody else for a second. You know, Anthony Simons, especially if Rodney Hood is out, is a guy that you can get, you know, a little bit of production from a cheaper price.
Yeah, for sure. I think you're just short of, if you go Hood, are you just short of, you can't get Gafford.
No.
Oh, yeah, you can. You can get Gafford and Hood.
Well, I put Gafford in there. Yeah, and then you get Rodney Hood.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing is, and you mentioned the idea of telling yourself a story. Hey, man, if you think this game might be a blowout, you know, a guy like Gafford could eat. Well, you know who else could eat if you think this game's a little bit of a blowout is our preseason hero, Harry Giles, who puts up good points when he's out there. You just have to be willing, and I would only want to do this in a GPP format, to tell yourself the story that one of these teams wins a lopsided victory. I think we know the more likely scenario is Portland rolls right here, but hey, we've seen crazy things happen all over the NBA this year. You know, it would not be not 2021 NBA to see Chicago win by 30.
For sure.
Don't want to bet on it, though.
You have to really believe in a blowout because, you know, they've got Canner there eating a lot of those minutes too. So what about like captaining, like, you know, one of those cheaper guys?
I mean, then you're really telling yourself a story that that's going to happen, right?
Well, if you're doing that, I feel like you don't necessarily want the stars from one of the teams. Is the thing.
I mean, Dame is still going to outscore probably almost everybody, right?
Well, okay, like if the Portland rolls Chicago, I could easily see Nurkic outscoring LaVine.
Sure. I mean, that's plausible, right? I mean, all you need is for Nurkic to play, which has been weirdly low minutes lately. I mean, this guy has now played 23 or less in 3 straight games, albeit all 3 of them were a little blowout. Like, so maybe if you think this game's a little bit more lopsided or non-lopsided, you might want to change your opinions on Nurkic, because I'm not sure how much everybody looks at this.
I agree. That's true. Like, they have been in a bunch of lopsided games.
I mean, their last 3 games, I don't even think are as scores these closest, or were as close as these scores were.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
So if you believe this game is competitive, then maybe a Nurkic is not a bad play at all whatsoever. I mean, he doesn't make my optimal lineup, but it's not crazy to think that he outscores Kobe White if this game is competitive.
Not at all.
At a much lower, well, not much, but at a lower dollar amount.
You got to think so. Obviously, it's definitely a lower dollar amount. I was just saying, like, okay, so, well, on my scenario, I knew you would agree with that side. On the flip side of it, let's say it is a game where, like, Chicago rolls, which is not likely, but if it could happen, I think then, you're right, Dame will still outscore mostly everyone, but it's not like it would be crazy for Otto Porter to outscore McCollum.
No, and I think that's a situation. If you want to play the game, not a lot of people will bet on this too. So that's why it's the other important thing. You're really going to separate yourself from the pack. Like, I don't think there's a lot of people that have LaVine, Kobe White, and Otto Porter in their lineup. And in the scenario where Chicago rolls, you have to assume it's because they got hot from the outside.
Yeah, exactly. And then, like, you could still play Dame here.
Yeah, well, for sure. Let's say if you captain LaVine, who's still the best player on Chicago, throw in Porter and Kobe White, and then get Dame, like, you still have 7K right here. And then you know, pick your scrubs.
Yeah, like, and you got Gafford, who I think is solid because he's getting run regardless, and then a blowout will get more run. Yeah, I wouldn't play this way either. And, you know, there's not even like the Millie Maker type tournaments on this Showdown slate, so I don't think you need to get too crazy with it. But if you do think Chicago's going to win this game handedly, no one will play this way.
No, you're not going to get a lot of people that are going to bet. Again, these are if you're playing in one of these like multi-entry tournaments, yes, everything will be a little bit owned, but not a lot of people are going to bet on the idea of Chicago rolling. And quite frankly, it's not a good bet on paper. But we've seen wild things happen early in the NBA season. Zach LaVine can shoot the 3. Kobe White can get on fire. Otto Porter has his games. And as much as I love Dame and CJ because I think they're ballers, there's some days where outside shots just don't fall.
Yeah, like the difference, and the talent on these teams, I don't think is like that big. I think Portland's the better team, but I don't think like the talent is that big. Maybe I'm off there though.
You know, who are some guys on this one that you might think, you know, a guy that we had mentioned under the public video, a guy like Gary Trent is very desirable in the GPP format because he is completely relying on his outside shooting. And while he's a tough catch game roster because he can put up very poor point totals even when he does see his minutes, he can also go off. I mean, he just flat out just gave it to the Lakers just, 8 days ago, 37 DK points by shooting 7-11 from three. If you're playing within the GPP format, that's a story you could tell yourself.
Definitely. And I think he's way more like, there's a lot to like about him here also because he's like leverage off those other guys. Like you could captain him if you think it's one of those days.
Ballsier than I would go, but I think the idea of playing a Gary Trent over a CJ, and CJ's been sensational to start the year. So, I mean, he's been awesome. But we all know, we've been watching CJ for almost 10 years now. He has really good runs, and then he comes back down to earth.
Yes, it seems a little different now because he's doing it at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, and I don't want to skip CJ because, quite frankly, he's averaging more DFS points by a good margin. I mean, he's averaging 5 more than Dame this year, so I don't really want to skip him today. But guess what? I'm going to feel like that, and everybody's going to feel like that, which is going to make CJ, 95% owned on this slate?
Yeah, for sure.
90 in tournaments?
Yeah, it's got to be.
So we've seen CJ put up a buttload of 20 to 3, 25-point performances in his life. So if you feel like being brave, that's a way to go. In an optimal lineup, you're high on crack if you don't play CJ McCollum.
I agree.
You know, he's been awesome this year. I mean, he's really an impressive player when he gets rolling like this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, out of all these guys I mentioned, Zach LaVine, Kobe White, Dame, the easiest one to fade is Kobe White.
Yeah.
He is the cheapest, but he's still the most erratic. He has the lowest floor and probably the lowest upside.
Yeah, although part of me, like, one of these games, he's going to go off from three. Like, he doesn't, you're right, get a lot of steals or blocks, no blocks, but I don't think he has the upside as often as those other guys, but I still think that he's got 50-point upside on any given day.
I agree. I'm a Kobe White fan. You know darn well. I think I own him in every year-long league I'm in, at least 2 out of 3. I don't know if it's all 3 of them. I can't remember.
I also think that his DFS numbers, his numbers in general, would be a lot better without like Zach LaVine in his backcourt.
So maybe, like Kobe White, if you feel like captaining Kobe White, maybe it's a situation where you flat out fade a Zach LaVine and just think it's his bad game. But in that situation, maybe you want to play an Otto Porter and a Wendell Carter with him.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, listen, those are all viable tournament strategies for sure.
So I do think if it's me, gun to head, I'm looking at captaining CJ right now because him and Dame have been tick for tack this year so far. He offers me plenty of cap savings. I'm going to throw these guys into my lineup. And at that point is where the decisions really come down. Now, for example, if we find out that Rodney Hood is playing tonight, he's a pretty guy to get into your lineup. And then you can go get your boy Gafford.
For sure.
That would be the dream scenario for me right there. If Rodney Hood was playing, this is probably the lineup that I would run out.
Yeah, I get that, man. It makes a lot of sense.
You know, you keep bringing up Gafford, but if you guys haven't clicked on his game log yet, he's played 16 to 22 minutes, 3 straight games. And again, this was competitive, blowout competitive. He actually played the least number of minutes in the blowout, scored 29, 16, and 17 DK points.
Mm-hmm. He's just a solid look, especially in this one-game format when there aren't value plays to be had all over.
All right, here's a question for you. Garrett Temple or Denzel?
I was going to say Gafford's not even crazy on the main slate, especially when a guy like Ed Davis was getting a ton of love.
Ed Davis. I could just totally see Ed Davis not starting tonight now.
Yeah, I mean, it's Ed Davis. Yeah.
And I do think if Hood is out tonight, then I think Anthony Simons is a solid look.
Agreed.
Because you could do this in this scenario where you captain CJ, and then you could get a Denzel Valentine, which, you know, you're never going to be crazy excited for. But he's played 15 to 21 minutes, 3 straight games, and he's now offered 12 plus in all 4 games.
Yeah, I mean, he's never a guy that you're going to be excited about.
No, but he's averaging almost as many points as Melo for less than half the price.
Yeah, exactly.
He's scoring as many as Patrick Williams at, half the price.
Mm-hmm.
I know Thaddeus Young is a guy who's seen some run lately, but he's less than half his price and has outscored him in the last 2 games.
Yeah, I agree. The secondary Bulls pieces are very uninspiring, to say the least.
Well, yes. But there is no Hutchinson, there's no Shataransky, and there's no Markkanen tonight, so they kind of have to play at least at the minimum.
Truth. So, which is something.
I don't know. Have you been watching a bunch of the Bulls this year?
I've watched enough of them.
What's your thoughts on Patrick Williams so far? Kind of off the subject, not necessarily even for DFS.
I mean, he's very Matt to me. He doesn't impress me really at all.
To quote Shania Twain, he don't impress me much.
I mean, yeah, I'm not saying he's bad, but I know he's like very young and raw, but like he doesn't look like a difference maker to me. How about you?
Not yet. And again, I don't want to be hard on a young guy like this, 6 games into his NBA career, but you're right, very meh. He had one good DFS game. It was the opener when he was the minimum, and he gave everybody 27 points. Since then, he hasn't done anything to get me excited. Doesn't mean he won't get better. So far, it's real
Yeah, I mean, yes, agreed.
I mean, you watch a second-round pick like quickly last night, single-handedly helped the New York Knicks close out a game against the Hawks. You're like, you can step in and make a difference right away.
For sure. Now, not all guys don't do that.
For sure.
But you're 100% right.
I mean, quickly showed me more in the fourth quarter last night than I've seen from Kevin Knox in 2.5 years now or whatever it's been.
Although Knox had a nice stretch yesterday, too, at the end of the third quarter. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did watch most of that game because I was pretty heavy on Julius Randle. I had a little too much Elf, considering quickly took his fourth quarter run, but I also had a ton of RJ Barrett. So I was watching. Oh, and I had Capella all over the place. So disappointed by Elf and Capella late in that game, but at least they got there-ish. So I was watching a lot of that game.
Quickly was just really good, and Barrett was awesome for sure.
Yes. You brought this up, I want to say like 3 or 4 slates ago. It's worth noting. Now, it's been helped by the fact that like Burks hasn't played a couple games in a row, but Thibs plays his guys big minutes. So like Barrett and Randall are they're like 38 minutes a game.
Yeah, and that's like fantasy gold. I mean, Barrett just like he's not even that efficient, but he plays so many minutes.
Yeah,
yes,
Barrett's he's had some really good games and some less than stellar games. It just comes down to his shooting.
Yep. I mean, he walked into a lot of DFS points yesterday. It was maybe the best game he's played as a pro.
Yeah, it's as good of a DFS game as he's ever had that I can remember, but I liked him so much more after Burks and DSJ were ruled out because then there's no opportunity for him to stink it up and Thibs to go somewhere else. And like Randall is just playing monster minutes every day, and I really like what I'm seeing on him.
Yeah, same. I would keep giving those guys massive minutes if I were them, but that's just me.
I mean, I actually was just watching a first take clip before you called me on Skype, and it was Stephen A. getting all excited about the fact that the Knicks have won a few games in a row, but they've been so bad for so long. It's nice to have something to cheer for.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this isn't really something to cheer for, but I get it.
When they're that pathetic, maybe it is. It's sad.
Yeah, maybe it is. Quickly does look like a player. He looked good.
Yeah, I was very impressed by him down the stretch. And I enjoyed the commentators talking about the fact that, like, it's a conundrum as a head coach. Do you go to the veteran Elf, or do you keep Quickly in the game? It's kind of the reason you're winning.
I'll say this, though. They still don't have, like, a franchise superstar. I mean, a lot of teams don't, but, like, okay, I'll ask you this. Who would you rather have, RJ Barrett or Colin Sexton?
Oh boy, that's a coin flip one for me right there.
Yeah, it's a good one. Like, I think RJ Barrett he's got potential for sure, but I'm not sure he's ever going to be like I mean, I think at best he'll be a fringe all-star personally.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think neither one of those dudes is going to win an MVP. I like Sexton, but he's not LeBron, right?
That's for damn sure.
Who is, but he's not. So
he is a good scorer, though.
Yes, he can put the ball in the basket. I liked him a little bit last night.
Well, it was hard not to. They were missing everyone. I liked him and Chetty, and Chetty was really good.
Yeah, I was just going to say Chetty.
I saw you pull up Chetty yesterday and like quickly X out of him. And I always have a soft spot for Chetty. When Garland was out, Okoro was out, I got interested. Obviously, the Exum injury did not hurt him. And then Sexton, like, he just doesn't do a lot besides score. So if his shot is off a little bit, it's hard for him to get there when he's expensive-ish.
Yes, sir. All right. We'll flip it back over to this contest one last time to wrap it up for the day. And if it's you, gun to head, obviously pretty much everybody watching this show knows by now that you are 99.9999% GPP exposed. So just assume this is from a GPP method. Gun to head, like who's your captain tonight?
Man, gun to head, like my gut calls is Kobe White.
Okay. Just because you think his ownership at the captain spot is going to be significantly less than these other guys up here.
Yes. Also, he's less expensive. So when all is said and done, if I'm torn between these guys, the salary is helpful. The one guy in the mid tier that I'm interested in is Wendell Carter. The other guys I could really not. I mean, I'm not too worried about. If there was a way to roster the big four and Wendell Carter, I'd be very interested. I think the only way to do that would be potentially to captain someone else, like Wendell Carter.
Well, if you can captain Kobe White, yeah, you can't get to Wendell Carter. Never mind.
But like, if you captain Wendell Carter, can you do that?
It's going to be close. Let's check it out.
No.
Do you have anybody on here for negative 700?
Like this might work if you could captain Gafford though, which.
Well, I think maybe if you're captaining Wendell Carter, you don't love Kobe White as much, or Zach LaVine.
Yeah, or Zach LaVine. You can take one of those guys out and then, obviously go from there. The point of captaining Carter or whoever would just be to get those other four guys, knowing like what you said, they're obviously the top four scorers in the game. So we'll try this last one. Throw Gafford at captain. I don't really love Gafford with Carter, but see if you can get all the good guys with Carter.
Nope.
No, not even close. So you can't even do that. So yeah, I think that your optimal build definitely seems like the best on paper. Not gonna lie, and I think that taking out a LaVine or a Kobe White and going with what Carter and Porter makes sense, or vice versa, taking out a McCollum and going with a Nurkic is a look. But I think
I was just going to say that take out the McCollum and go with Nurkic. It's just going to be different, right?
Yeah. Also, if you're playing in I know there's like a 10,000 person $15 tournament. It's not a Millie Maker where there's 100,000 people. But that's still 10,000 people. If you're playing in that, tell yourself a story. Maybe you think Nurkic outscores McCollum, so you make that same lineup that you made, but you put Nurkic in instead of McCollum.
I do think that just based on the game log alone, Nurkic is going to go very under-owned tonight because that was my initial thoughts. And then I kind of thought about it a little bit closer. Like, he has not played monster minutes yet this year, other than the game against Houston. But these last 3 games have been really, really lopsided. The other thing is, if he just plays his best game early tonight and he's giving it to the Bulls, then maybe coach lets him run out there just a little bit further. So I think you can get Nurkic at probably, if I just had to guess, 15-ish%.
On this showdown slate, I think he's going to be higher.
On mute.
I'm not on mute. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
I don't know if anybody can hear me. We're on a little bit of a connection issue right now with the internet. We should be back momentarily.
Can you hear me? Hello? Well, if anyone can hear me, I think Nurkic will be higher than 15%, but we'll see.
Okay, yeah, we cut out for about a good 30 seconds there, so I missed some of that. You were saying,
I think Nurkic will be higher than 15%. That was the last thing I heard you say.
Okay, what would be your guess? Again, I'm just guessing, so I could
40%
completely be off. 40?
It's only one game. People are going to he's the next desirable player after those top 4, and I could see him being higher on than Kobe White.
It's possible. It's definitely possible. I do think Dame, McCollum, and Zach LaVine will all be obviously supreme chalk.
I agree. And then people will probably think that Portland's going to roll and, maybe want another piece of Portland after that instead of Kobe White. I do think that those guys will be supreme chalk, but I don't think you're going to get Nurkic at 15.
Okay. Maybe I'm overrating because of my love of Kobe White, how much people are going to want to sandwich him to a lineup or Otto Porter knowing that the Bulls are shorthanded.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe I'm just off on ownership. I don't play these showdown slates all that often, so I'm not positive.
So another guy that we barely mentioned, just because he really hasn't kind of found his stride with Portland yet, and part of that's going to be McCollum's been balling, is Rocco probably goes a little bit under the radar because he just hasn't played well yet.
I do think that this is an interesting game because a lot of teams, like the secondary players, can often outscore the frontline players. Like they won't all the time, and they usually won't, but a lot of times they can. For Portland and Chicago, they don't a lot. Like very rarely do guys on Portland like outscore McCollum and Dame, except for Nurkic, like when it's his game. And Chicago, like very rarely do people outscore Levine, I feel like. So it is an interesting slate in that regard.
Yeah, and it's hard not to be top heavy.
For sure, because the secondary players in this game are very meh.
And again, even though we don't love the cheap guys, you almost never love the cheap guys. But let's, if Rodney Hood plays, he puts up a few points. Simons is all right. Valentine and Temple are both stuck playing pretty decent roles right now with the Bulls shorthanded due to COVID. And like Denzel Valentine's not a scrub. He's not a great player, but he's not a scrub. He's not like some guy who can't create his own shot.
He's pretty scrubby in my opinion.
Fair enough.
He cannot create his own shot.
I know you kind of like Garrett Temple a little bit. I mean, I don't think he's a scrub.
Yeah, I mean, he's on the precipice, but I'll give you that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy the last time we saw him in the bubble for the Nets was, getting a decent amount of love from the industry. It's a different game and everything like that. But, he's a 39-year NBA veteran for a reason.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's what does it. And then again, we mentioned him, but just one more shout out to Gary Trent. More of a GPP guy than anything, but this is a guy who can shoot the three ball really effectively. And the idea of him going nuts tonight is not at all crazy.
No, not at all.
So that's about it, guys. We need to get to the pounding up the main slate information. We appreciate y'all watching and have yourself a wonderful Tuesday night and go win yourself some cash.
Thanks, guys.